Okay, let's start. Thanks for joining today's lesson that will be about Git. Let me share with you a picture. Okay, I think that you can see the picture. Some of you will be familiar with that. This when we are, for instance, we are creating a document that could be a paper to submit to an article or the PhD dissertation, and we have a draft. We send the draft to our supervisor, and the supervisor send us some comments. We apply the comments and we have a new version called Final Rev 2. Then the supervisor send another version, Final Rev 6. You have another version, another version. So you have a folder with 8 versions, and you don't know what if the names are named good. You know which version is the first, which version is the last, but it's a little bit of a mess. This so the tool that we will learn today is Git, and Git is a tool where we can have a repository that this is like let's say a folder where we will have our files, and we will keep track of each modification. So you will never lose any change. In case that, for instance, you have a file and you do some updates, but you are not happy with with those updates, you can always come back to the previous version. Also, it's a powerful tool to collaborate between colleagues. Imagine, for instance, yesterday we learned about the make, and we have that file, and this file is used by several colleagues in your team, and all of them can do modifications, can have the latest version, and also you will know who who made the modification that who modified the line on your script. So this is why we are learning today Git, because it's quite powerful to have it as a version control. So I will share with you also in case that you want to have it as a reference, the course material that we will see today. And yes, let's start playing a little bit with the version control. Yes, there is a question in the chat that says that if Git is a version control for codes or program, and if could be used for data, metadata, as long as the data, I mean, Git is powerful when what you have is text, so you can see the changes, and you can merge changes. You can see which line was modified by who. If you upload, it is possible to upload other types of documents, but some features that you have in Git will be lost. For also, I think it's possible to upload large files, but it's not this Git is more intended for text files. Let's say source code, scripts. Uh, it's possible to yes, it's possible to have data repositories, but yes, size could be a limit. It's not for this. Maybe the other tools are more appropriate. So yes, I forgot to say, but well, I suppose that in case, yeah, please ask me as many questions as you have, and yeah, happy to answer them. So the idea of having a version control is that you keep track of all of the changes that you do to your document, and also several people can work in that document. For example, if we use Word, Open Office, it is possible to keep track of the changes, do comments, etc. But today, what we will see is a tool to work with the scripts and source code that we may have. Okay, so what I will do is I will share my uh, terminal. Can you see it okay? The font size, etc. Perfect. So let's start. In case that you see that the font is not I don't know, big enough or colors, etc. Please let me know. So to check if you have installed Git or not, you can type Git and execute it, and you will get all this message. So that means that well, we get a help message saying what we can do with Git. That we will see some of these commands during this course. So first of all, what we need to set up is our name and email address. This is important to keep track of when you do a modification on a file to know who modified that file or which lines were modified by you. So let's define that. The way to define that is we need to type git config that's global, and we will define user dot name, and here we write our name. We type our name. That case is Juan Herrera. So this is to define your name, and now we need to define our email address. Later today we will use GitHub. With GitHub, if in this case will be good to use the same email address that we have in the GitHub. If also it's possible in case that you are concerned about sharing your email address and you want to keep it private, it is possible to do that in GitHub. The email address will not be public. So okay, we have done we have defined our name, and now we need to define the email address. So it's a git config, oops, that's a global, and it's a user dot email. That in my case is j dot Herrera at epcc.ad.ac.uk. So now we have defined our name and the email address. Fine. Also, it's another thing that we can define is the the editor that we will use to edit the files. And you can do that, for instance, in case that you want to use Nano for the editor, you can write something like that: git config dash global, and is core dot editor. Here you can specify which editor do you want to use. You can use Emacs, Vim. Also, you can use editor that has a graphical user interface. But in this case, I want to use Nano. What I need to define here is Nano and minus W. That I don't remember now what that means, but I can check it that later. Or also, I say that I want to use Vim. So this is in case that you want to define the editor that you want to use. We can see an example later of that. So we do that. Well, in case that you don't have that editor, you don't need to do that. So just ignore that. And if in case that you want to see later, you don't remember what you have defined and you want to have a look at that, you can execute git config that's the list, and you get everything that you have defined. So I have defined my email name and the editor that I will use. Also, it's possible to define, in case that you use in your network, you have a proxy, or you are behind a proxy, you can define that. You can specify the proxy URL. It's also possible to define, in case that you can also define the line endings, because you can for example, in Windows, if you open a file that was created using Linux, the end of lines sometimes are compatible and sometimes not. So you can have a whole instead of have the file having different lines, you have everything in one line. So to read that is quite more difficult. So for example, for Windows users, could be useful to define this. That this is a git config that's global core dot auto auto cr, that is carriage return lf true. In that case, you will not have that issue. If you are on Mac or Linux, you can define it as input. That's the only. But also, this is optional. You don't need to. This is just in case that you want uh, to to use that. Anyway, in the documentation there are more info about that. This is just to let you know that this system, in case that you want to use it in a future, is good to know what it has. Also, it's useful to know how to get help with in case that in this case we are working with the Git config, so I use Git config. If I want some help, I can use -h. I can get here the mm, the help of this command. So this is a Git config. Is to configure our username, email address, the editor that we want to use, other preference that we want to have in the machine. We will see later an example to how to modify the editor, and you can see why I'm defining now the editor. So there are several questions here. That is, the first one is, can we have multiple users defined for Git on one system? I think you have I will say one per system. In case that you want to, because the idea is you have your laptop, you are let's say only the user of that, so you have your name and email address. But in case that you want to have, imagine that you are in another, you want to use another email address, or you can always update that. You can always update that. But I can have a look later and see if there is an easier way to have several users in one system, or maybe my helpers can have a look. Jose William, if I have a look at that. There is another question that says, is this possible to change the editor to another one after the definition? Yes, and actually we will do that. We will do that later. Now we are using Nano, but I can change mine to Vim, and you can see the difference. And these changes are permanent. Yes, are not are save permanent. But you can always redefine or delete these changes. Okay, so let's continue. What we will do now is, okay, now we have defined or we have defined the global variables, and we can start working with Git. So what we will do is we will create our first repository. In the documentation, they follow an example using planets. You are studying the planets, and you have some nodes for each planet. A repository that also we can create is, for example, for yesterday, that we use a make script we can save that make script into a repository. Or for tomorrow that we will learn more about Python, we can save that as well. For example, yesterday's example is we can save the Python scripts, the data that we are using. So this, but just to follow the sample that is in the documentation, let's create the repository that we will call it Planet, and so that move to the desktop folder, and we can create the folder that is mkdir planet. So once that we have created the folder, we can change the directory cd planet, and I can let's define the repository. The way of defining it is git init. So if I execute that, I get a message that is initialize empty git repository in that path, that is home, my username, and desktop planets .git. And if I do ls minus a is to see the hidden files, we will see that we have a folder that is called .git. And in that folder is where the repository or all the data related to the repository and history will be saved. So now that we have our repository, we can do Git status to see what is the state of the repository. So by default, when you create a repository, you create a branch. Well, branches are not covered in today's lesson, but just to let you know what it is, you can have different. Imagine that you have a version of the file, or let's say some code, and you want to do an improvement, or you want to create a new version of a software. So you can create. You have the branch that is by default is called master. But you can create a new branch, let's say version 2 or version 3, and you can save changes to that branch. It's like inside the same repository, you can have different versions, and then you can merge these versions. So we will see this later. Also, the second is no commit yet. So you don't have if anything is not committed yet. Also, there is nothing to commit. So what is the set is create copy files and use git add to track these files. Also, in case that you want to, because all the repository data is in the for.git. In case that you want to remove repository data, you can delete that folder. But deleting that folder, you delete the Git repository. So you delete history, you delete everything. Also, is in the important that could be maybe obvious, well, obvious. Sometimes could make sense, but it's not. When you if you have a repository, it's not the best, or let's say it's not good to have a repository inside a repository. So for example, I have my repository that is called Planet. If I create a folder, there is no need to create a new repository inside that folder, because in the parent repository, that is in this case is a Planet, you can add that folder to the repository rather than creating a new one. I mean, that makes sense. In case that you want to have several repositories, you can have them, but there should be separate folders, not to have a nested repository. So thanks, William. Just to clarify, the Git config, we have used the global flag. That this is by the default that we have uh, for all the repositories. But in case that you want to change for a specific repository, you can go to this repository and change the configuration without the global flag, and this configuration will be inside the repository. The thing with the Git that there are many possibilities and many things that you can do. So what we are learning today is the introduction, but if you start using it, is every day is a day that you can learn new features about Git, because it's a powerful tool for version control. Okay, so we have defined our repository. So what we will do is we will create our first file. So the first file, we will call it Mars, and we will add some notes about Mars. So let's do that. So I will use Nano, but you can use the text editor that you want. So let's use nano mars.txt. And now I can add some notes about the planet. So I can say cold and dry, but everything is my favorite color. First, for instance, I can have that note, and to save that is Control O, Control X. So if I print that file with the cat, I can see that note now. If I do ls, I see that, yeah, I have that file. What if I execute git status? You see that now the message changed. They said that there are untracked files, and also gives you some help to they tells you use git add to include in what will be commit. So in case that we want to keep track of the changes of this file, we need to add this file to the repository. Is in the the file is in the repository folder, but it's not added to the repository to keep a track of it. So the way of doing that is, as they said, is a git add mars.txt. And now if I execute git status again, I get a new message. They said that in case that we want to commit the changes, this file has been added to the repository or to the it's called a staging area. In case that we are happy with the file, I mean we want to save the changes to our repository. The way is to commit the changes. So we can do git commit -m. This is to specify the message that the message because every time that you commit some changes, you can add and this is recommended to add a note in your that the note should be short and explain about uh, the changes that you have done. So I can use start notes on Mars, for instance, and if I execute that, I get that message that there is a one file change, one insertion, create mode, Mars text. So we have this file already commit. So if I do again git status, we get the branch that we are on branch master, and they said that there is nothing to commit, working tree clean. So it's everything up to date. So let me show you we'll share with you this in order to understand what we have done so far. Okay, so this is the file that we have. So and this is our repository. So the first that we have done is git add. So we add the file to the staging area. Where you see there are 3 lines in black that are the lines that were previously in the file, but imagine that you added the line that is in green color. So I save the changes and I execute git add to add the changes to the staging area. Then I type a git commit and the changes are added to the repository. So that's why we have two steps. We have a staging area that is where we save changes, and once that we are happy with the changes, we can commit them to the repository here. So let's switch back to the terminal. There are some questions that are, this one is quite interesting. It says if I have a GitHub account with the same email I provide here, should I be able to see this new created repository in that account by now? No, because this repository is still local. We created a repository on our laptop, and now we are working with that. We will see later how we can save the repository on our GitHub account. but you need to execute git push to commit these changes to the remote repository. We will see that later. Okay, I will explain the choice of the editor with an example. Okay, let's edit. For example, the editor that I'm using now to modify the files doesn't need to correspond to the one that is defined in Git. So I mean, now I can use the editor that I want. In this case, I'll use nano mars.txt, and here I can add another note. Let's say I don't like cold weather, for instance, or anything that you want. So let's save that. And now what we want is to commit these changes. So the procedure is git add, because if I do again git status, you see that the file has been modified and there is no, we need to do a git add to, if we want to save the changes. So we do a git add mars.txt, and what I will do now is git commit. But you remember that before we use -m and the commit message. So in this case, we will not use that. So here now you see that the new editor is open. This is the editor that we have used, we have defined previously in our Git global configuration variable. Here I can type the message that is, for example, add comment about weather. So this is the commit message. So this is now if I save that file and I close, you see that the commit is done. What else? Okay, just to show you how to change the, let's see, the default editor. So these steps you don't need to do that if you don't want to, but just to show you the sample. Imagine that I don't like Nano and I want to use Vim. So if I I use a Nano, I can define this. So I can type a git config dash global core editor. I can specify here that I want to use Vim. So if I do that, and I add again other changes to the file, so I can do nano mars, and I can say people who like cold weather we want to visit the planet. For instance, any comment that you may have. Save the changes, and now if I do also a way that in case that you want to add, because if we do a Git status, we get that Mars has been modified. In case that you want to avoid Git add, you can do a Git commit straight. You can do Git commit. Well, for instance, if you do a Git commit without adding first, you get that message that you don't have add anything to the staging area, but you have modified this file. So one way that you can do, if you want, let's say, to skip the add step, is you can do git commit -a. That this is add all the modifications that I have done. Did this that works if the files are already in the repository. If you have new files, that doesn't work. But just to show you a new feature of a Git commit. So if I do that, now you can note that the editor that I have open is different. Now I'm using Vim rather than Nano. So now I can edit my message. Vim is a little bit is different, so you need to use commands in a different way. So to introduce text, you need to press the key I. So you see that now in the bottom left, now it's changed to insert. So you can insert text. And now you can add the commit message. Add comment about future tourists, let's say, about on the planet. And also, what with the it depends. I mean, you should use the comment that, but for example, Vim can you get the font that is with different colors, and is but yeah, this is up to you. So to save changes, I need now to press escape, and now I need to press colon, W and Q. That means write changes, and the Q is to quit, to exit the. So if I execute that, I have all of these. Well, I have the message, and I have I change the file, and I add, this is the one insertion. It's like one new line of that that file. So what else? Let me check if there is any. So yeah, I think that answered your question about committing the changes without staging them. So if you do a git commit -a, you can do that. But always if files are in the repository. If not, Git ignore them. For instance, we can modify the file Mars. For example, I don't like that the last comment. I don't think that this is relevant, so I can remove that comment. and I can control O, control X. So if I now what we will see is the how to see differences between the file that is in my committed to the repository and the current file that I have. So if I add the file to the staging area, add mars.txt, well, sorry, no, okay, this is not what I wanted to. Okay, well, let's do a git commit -m remove last comment. Okay, now I get a different message, one file change and one deletion. What I wanted to do is, okay, let's modify again mars.txt and I'll add a new comment saying, I don't know, I like to visit planet in the future. So if I say Control O or Control X, and now I execute a git diff, here I can see the changes with respect to the file that is committed. So it's in the repository. So the changes, I see that there is a, well, in case that you have your terminal show colors, you see that you have a new line in green. In case that you don't have you're in a system that doesn't have colors, you get a plus add at the beginning of the line. So you can see the differences of the between between the file that is on your folder, let's say the working copy, and the file that is in the repository or already commit. So there you see the changes. What if I do what can I do? Well, I can, this is what I wanted to show you. If I do a git add mars.txt and I execute again git diff, I don't get any output. But what if I want to see the differences between something that is on the staging area with something that is in the already committed to the repository? I need to execute the git diff dash stage it. In that case, I see the differences between the file that is in the staging area and the file that is committed to the repository. Yes, there is a question in the chat saying that talking about the differences between A Mars and B Mars. A Mars is the file that is on our the working copy. Where in this case the file that is in the staging area. B Mars is the file that is in the already committed to the repository. Okay, so let's commit the changes. Git commit -m add comment about future plans, for instance. Okay, I see that all the time I'm adding comments for each of the commits that I do. Why? This is because if I do a git log, I can see everything that I have already commit. So we see that the commit we have a long string with characters and numbers. This is the ID, the identifier of the commit that I have done. I was using the top that we are in the head. Head is the latest version of the repository. We will see about later. But yeah, just to introduce you, head is yes the latest version of the repository. Master is the branch that we are using. So we have a author is yeah Juan Herrera with my email address. Date is the when was this was a commit, and here I have the comment that I have add, and this is useful when you search between different versions of your repository. So you see that I have the latest commit is add comment about future plans. The previous comment is remove last comment, add comment about future tunings, add comment about weather. So you can see all of the changes that I have done. But imagine that you want to see only one. You can use git log -1, and you see only one. You see the last commit -1. You said that this is the last commit. Also, you can use the -2, and you can see the two latest commits. So there you see the information about them. Also, because this is quite well, this is, let's say, the longer version. In case that you want to have a reduced version, you can use git log one line. That's one line. And there, this is the reduced version. The identifier is the short version, and you get only the comment. You don't get author or date. So this is a way. Also, it's explained in that, but this is for larger repositories where you have branches and you have any other commits. You can use the same log one line, and you can add dash graph. Adding that, you can get a graph with all of the changes that later I will show you an example where we can see better the. So yes, answering the hexadecimal code in front of the comments on the one-line example is like a short identifier of the commit, because we will see later in case that we want to compare different commits, we will need to use the identifier, and we can use the longer version and or the short version that is in the. We will see an example about that later. Let's try git log -c. Okay, if I there is another question in the chat to see the comments and the changes made to the file. So if you do git log -c, you can add the modifications that you have done to the file. Well, you see if a line is removed, is in red color, and also there is a minus at the beginning of the line. So here you can see all the modifications that we have done. So this is what they said, that Git has many features, and with the use you always learn new features and new ways to work with that with this. So just to what I mentioned before about git commit -a to imagine that I add a new file. Let's use nano Venus, for instance, .txt, and okay, I will add this file will contain notes about Venus, for instance. And I save that file. Let's imagine that, okay, I edit Mars as well. Nano mars.txt. And I want to add another note about the hiking in Mars. Looks like a experience. I mean, any note that you may. So if you save that, for example, if now I do git commit -a, well, there you see in the comments that you will the changes that will be commit will be the changes that are in Mars, but as you see that the untracked files are Venus, so you should be careful when you execute git commit -a, because when you use that, you commit the files that already existed in the repository. In case that you create a new file, this file will not be committed in this new. So I'm not sure if that is a way to. Well, in case that you want to, if the commit message is empty, you abort the commit. You don't do the commit. In case that also you are, imagine that we are working now with this repository, but you stop, don't know, tomorrow you are going on leave, and you are not in the office until next week. When you come back next week, you don't remember the state of the repository, a way is to what we have learned before. We will do Git Status, and we see the things that how the repository is. So we have a Mars that is a modified, and Venus that is a new file. So what we can do is we can add everything to the staging area. So we can do git add mars.txt, git add venus.txt. For example, in this case, I'm adding these two files, but also you can use different commits for different files. I mean, this is up to you. But okay, let's do here the, and if I do a git status again, I see that I have a file that is modified and a new file that is in the Venus. So I can git commit -m and say imagine update Mars and add Venus nodes. So now you have in your repository the latest. You can do a git log -1 and see the changes. That is a okay. What that is an exercise that in case that you want to play around, the exercise is to create a repository. And okay, I will copy that exercise to the chat. So let's do this exercise. We will now create a new Git repository called bio, where will contain our biography. We can write a 3-line biography for ourselves, modify one line, and display the differences. The idea here is to start to do what to apply what we have learned. So we create a folder, initialize the Git repository, create a file, add the file to the Git repository, and so on. So I give you 5 minutes, and later we can continue with the lesson. Fine. So I see that some people have already finished the exercise. So what I suggest, let's solve this exercise together. The idea of this exercise is to put into practice what we have learned so far. So to create a new repository, we can move to our desktop folder, and we can create a new folder called bio. So I could say cd bio. Sorry, well, complains that the directory doesn't exist because I forgot to create that. So it's mkdir bio cd bio. And now I needed to create I have the folder, but I need to create my repository. So to create the repository is git init. And this initialize empty git repository so they said that I needed to create a file called me.txt with my bio that I could say my name is Juan. I was born in Spain. I work at EPCC, for instance. Let's use I can save the file, and the file is in my folder, but it's not in the repository. So I needed to add that file to the staging area, git add me.txt, and now commit the commit -m and say imagine first or draft version, for instance. And I get a message that yes, the file have been added to the. So they said that to create a new, edit the file, add a new line, and see the differences. So this is nano me dot. I can say VCC. What can I say? I don't know. Imagine I have a bicycle. So maybe, not sure if this is quite relevant or not, but well, let's add that. Yeah, okay, so let's save this, and to see the differences between the repository and the working file that I have is with the git diff, and I get I see that I have a new line in my working copy. So this is the exercise. Okay, what we will do now is let's move back to the planets repository, and we will see how to because if I do git diff, I can compare the working copy with the copy that is in my repository. But what about if I want to see the compare the file to previous version of the repository? Can I do that? So the answer is yes. The way of doing that is I have several files now. I have Mars, Venus, and I needed to specify the version of the repository and the file. So for instance, I can do a git diff. I mentioned before that the latest version of the repository is called head, and I will compare with the mars.txt. So I get nothing as output because the versions are the same. What if I want to compare with the previous version of the repository? The previous version is head, and this symbol called tilde, and is 1. So this is like the previous version of the latest repository. So if I do that, I can see that that is yes. The difference is that I add a new line. If I do git log one line, you see that the head is the latest commit, and other comment about future plans is the previous is when you compare with the previous commit, and also you can use git diff head tilde 2, and you can see the differences too. What else? Well, also you can see the the file in the commit, like git show head tilde 2 mars.txt. In that case, you see the changes that have been done to that. I mean, you get a different output. You see the differences that have been done to that commit, but you specify the file, and also you specify the commit. Was a question before talking about why we get what's the meaning of this hexadecimal string that we have, because we can use head -1, well, minus tilde 1, tilde 2, but also we can use that. So if I do git log, and I want to use this long string, well, I can copy that string, and I can say git diff this string, that this is how we refer to the commit version on mars.txt. So I'm comparing this with that version of the. I see the changes of Mars with that version of the commit. In case that you don't want to use this long string, you can use the short version. If you do git log one line, you can copy this one, for instance, and say git diff this and mars.txt. So this is the way of comparing the different versions of the file in the commit. What else? That is a way. Okay, let's compare with the Git. If we show our file, we see that the file contains 4 lines, and Okay, we see that yeah, looks like that, but okay, let's curious about the previous version. So I can say git diff head tilde one mars.txt. Okay, so I see that that I like more that because you see the this I like more this version that without this. So what I can do is I can revert or I can revert to the previous version of the file. So how can I do that? I now what we would use is Git Checkout. So if I do Git Checkout, here I specify the the previous commit version that I have done, and the file mars.txt, and now I do cat mars.txt. I see that the file is in the previous version. Before had the file had 4 lines, and now it has only 3. So I can always revert to previous version of the file in case that I'm not happy with the changes. So the way is git checkout the version of the repository mars.txt. Well, that is the file that we want to revert. But okay, I revert the file, and this file is my working copy. So if we do a git status, we see that the file is there in the is modified, but is the changes are not in the repository. So to add the changes, I need to do git commit -m and the relevant comment saying something like restore previous. For instance. And now you see that I have that. So this is also a way to imagine that a colleague of you commit a mistake and make a mistake and upload some don't know, some notes that maybe are wrong or are not, you are still not sure if this note could be shared. You can always come back to the previous version and commit. But all changes, as we have seen, all changes are registered in the repository. So it's a good way to to keep track of what is done in the repository. So yes, last thing now is time for a break. Let's have a break until 11:30, and we will after the break we will see how this local repository we can save that in on GitHub. How we can have a remote repository and work with that. So yes, let's have a break and see you at 11:30.